They say that brisket is the king of barbecue, so let's smoke one. Low and slow on a Weber 26-inch, and we're using the charcoal snake method. And yes, this might be my best brisket yet. Let's get right into it. Now I have this 17-pound brisket. It was one of the biggest one they had. I was really trying to see how large I could go on the Weber 26-inch. Now let's start with the trimming. I'm gonna start by removing that thick chunk of fat on the meat side. Then flip it over to tackle what they call the mohawk on the fat cap side. Don't throw this away. Cook it alongside the brisket or grind it for burgers. In fact, don't throw away the fat you trim off either. You can cook down and render down for tallow. However, anything that looks dry, burned, or unappetizing, just cut it off and throw it out. Now, I'm not gonna go too crazy here, but I just wanna keep as much of the meat as possible. But at the same time, trim down as much of the fat as you can. All right, so this isn't competition barbecue. This is backyard barbecue. I'm not trying to trim the world's most aerodynamic brisket. I just wanna cook it evenly and keep as much of the meat on it as possible. Normally, this section here, I would really cut it off and also round off the flat a little bit more. But for this cook, I'm really trying to conserve the size as much as possible. Now for seasoning, when it comes to brisket, I always recommend salt, pepper, and sometimes garlic. But today, I'm using It's Incredible. Now, if you've been following me, you'll know I've been using It's Incredible since the very beginning. It's a great product that I highly recommend. It's basically salt, pepper, garlic in a bottle. And it just works. I laid down a solid coat of that first, and then followed up with a heavy layer of coarse black pepper. Finish it off with a little Lawry's seasoned salt, just to give it that extra savory hit. Now, Lawry's seasoned salt is used on barbecue quite often, but unlike kosher salt, you really do not want to go heavy with it. Let's flip and do the same thing on the other side. Another thing worth mentioning is I did not use a mustard binder. I find that brisket is moist enough to hold the seasoning by itself. Mustard also doesn't add any flavor, so in my honest opinion, most backyard cooks can skip the mustard binder completely. As far as bark formation, I'm going to share with you later on in this video what the key is to good bark formation. Let's move on to the charcoal setup. I'm using the snake method on the Weber 26-inch kettle. It's gonna be a 2x1 layout, 2 briquettes on the bottom and 1 on top. Make sure you stack them like dominoes that were toppled over. In my last snake method, I use a 2x2 snake, so let's see if a 2x1 snake works on the 26-inch. Now, I've been getting a lot of questions from beginners about the snake method. Does the snake method give off bad smoke since the charcoal isn't fully lit yet? And the short answer is no. As long as you're using the right charcoal. Do not use match light for low and slow, or any fast light briquettes with chemicals or harmful binders. I hardly ever mention this on my videos, but these past comments made me realize I really need to point this out much more often. Once the snake is built, drop in a few cherry wood chunks, and then I'm gonna place a water pan in the center. This is gonna help stabilize temperatures, and it's gonna add a little humidity. If you're using a good brand of charcoal briquettes, does it introduce bad flavors? And here's the deal. When you first light the head of the snake, you do get ignition smoke, but that clears out in about 15 to 20 minutes. This is why I recommend you close the lid and let your grill come up to temperature. And once the grill is up to temperature, the neighboring coals next to the lit ones are already heating up so that when the flame is near, they ignite clean. So you get little to no ignition smoke during the rest of the cook, which means no bad flavors. Once the kettle settles between 250 and 275, I'm gonna lay the brisket on, fat side up, and let's let the snake do its thing. The kettle has gone 5 hours, but let's check on it. It's looking good. The Weber is doing such a great job at locking in those temperatures with the snake method. And since the lid is open, I'm gonna go ahead and take advantage and rotate the brisket. As you can see, I use a potato with my wireless probe, so that I can monitor pit temperatures. Now, the wireless probes are known for not getting accurate ambient temperatures. That's because the ambient probe is too close to the meat. So the potato, hopefully it solves this issue. But also, note that I'm not monitoring the brisket temperatures. At this very stage of the cook, I'm just looking for good bark. I know this brisket is not done yet without having to probe for temperatures. So let's keep cooking. At the 7.5 hour mark, brisket is still looking great, but the steak, well, it needs to be extended. I'm gonna remove the brisket, the grate, and then extend the steak. It's only going for a few hours, so I really don't need to add too much charcoal. For reference, I'm gonna probe the brisket. The brisket has hit 150 degrees Fahrenheit. It's probably in the stall right now, and the temperatures are not gonna climb too high at this point. But I didn't wrap it yet because the bark, well, it just wasn't ready. So let's keep on cooking. 4 more hours, and the bark is right where I wanted. Once it had that deep mahogany color and it didn't smear when I touched it, I knew it was ready. Now, this is where a lot of people mess up. They wrap based on temperature instead of good bark formation. This is why I kept the cook going. The key to great bark is not a mustard binder. It's not about your rub or the type of paper you're gonna use for the wrap or even the grill you have. It's all about letting that bark form completely before wrapping. This way, the bark and the seasoning doesn't wash away during the wrap process. So now it's time for the second part of the cook, the wrap. I wrapped it not in butcher paper, but in foil. Foil works just fine when you wrap it tight and avoid trapping any air pockets. Foil paper is also what most people already have in the kitchen. I made sure to double wrap the brisket. Once it's wrapped, it's not taking any more smoke. Now you could go back and finish it on the grill or just use your oven, your choice. And as Sous says,
because BTU is BTU is BTU, you don't really have to run your pit at this point in time to save fuel and also to kind of make it easier on yourself.
And at this point, I'm gonna finally start monitoring internal temperatures. I'm gonna slip in my wireless thermometer on the thick end of the brisket and then place my brisket in the oven. Now, if you're curious, this brisket reached tenderness at 198. To determine when the brisket is done, I don't go by numbers, I go by feel. Once the probe slid in like room temperature butter, I knew we had it. Your brisket is gonna be different. Sometimes it happens at 205 degrees, sometimes even higher. This is why I say numbers do not matter as much as knowing when it's tender. Use the internal temperature as a guideline, but what it feels like is your determining factor to know when your brisket is done. I let it vent and then cool down to about 160 degrees Fahrenheit. Then I wrapped it back up for the overnight hold. For long holding a brisket overnight, I used to use my oven. Then I moved over to the Sous Vide machine, which works really great. But now I use my Vide food warmer, and honestly, it's the best setup I've used so far. It can stay outside, and it's gonna keep the house from smelling like brisket all night long. 10 hours later, I pulled it out from the warmer, so let's slice. Oh yeah, that bark held up nicely, and that smoke ring, ooh, absolutely gorgeous. So juicy. Now here is the real benefit of the overnight hold. You can cook it the day before, hold it overnight at a safe holding temperatures of 150, slice it and serve it the next day. It's gonna be hot, it's gonna be juicy, and this isn't just a home trick. A lot of barbecue joints do this too. You do not have to wake up at 3 a.m. to cook up a brisket so you could eat it that same day. Long holding makes brisket better. The texture gets better, the flavors deepen, and it just gets juicier. Now, I'm not suggesting you go out and buy a food warmer. Do it in the oven if it goes that low. Or use your sous vide machine. Do whatever it takes and try the long hold. You're gonna thank me later. Let me slice off a slice and check for tenderness. Look at that, a nice bend, and it still holds together nicely by its own weight. It's super juicy, it's tender, and you get nice clean slices. This is what you want in a backyard brisket. And thanks to that long hold, you could serve it when your guests are ready to eat. It's a good brisket. My God. If you've never tried the steak method, give it a shot. It's simple, it's fuel efficient, and it really works like magic on the Weber Kettle. No weird flavors and not too much fussing around your vent settings to keep the temperatures low. And if you've never tried long holding your brisket before, you have to do it. It's one of the best upgrades you can make to your brisket. Look how tender that is. All right, let's take a quick little bite here. Now please hit that like button if this video helped you out, and I'm gonna see you on the next one.